Welcome to 2019. I'm Warren Sprouse, as always, here for you. I want to talk to you about Jerusalem tonight. Does Israel have a right to Jerusalem? That's the big issue that faces the world. They just don't really think the Jews have a right to Jerusalem. It ought to still be partitioned and all the rest of it. But Jerusalem as a city appears in the history books as early as 4000 to 3100 BC. You do realize BC is counting backwards. 4000 is the newest. 3100 is the oldest. It appears as a Canaanite city. The first mention of Jerusalem in the Bible indicates a man who acknowledges and serves the one true God of heaven to be its king. His name? Melchizedek. He lived and ruled over the city, as it was called then, Salem, about 2000 BC. He is credited as also being the priest of the Most High God. Genesis 14, verse 18. A man to whom Abraham paid tithes of all he had rescued from retreating army of Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and his confederates, as they plundered the cities of the plain down around Sodom and Gomorrah and all like that, and captured people, took them slaves into their country, among others Abraham's nephew Lot. Abraham gathered his people, employees, the people of his household, the people he paid, and armed them and went after these people. Jerusalem appears later in the days of David, king of Israel. 2 Samuel 24 records God's displeasure with Israel because apparently David had charged Joab to number the people. You see, they were facing an enemy, and David appealed to God, and God gave David three choices. Because of David's sin, he would be judged. Israel would be judged. He had three choices on this. David chose 7 years of famine, saying that he trusted the hand of God over the hand of men. And after that 7-year period, the fighting force had dwindled significantly. 70,000 fighting men had perished, not counting all the other people. David was sufficiently humbled, but he was also militarily weakened. And in 2 Samuel chapter 24, David was instructed. It says that the day came when Gad, one of his people in his palace, came to him and said, "Go up, rear an altar unto the Lord in the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite." And David, according to the saying of Gad, went up as the Lord commanded. And Araunah looked and saw the king and his servants coming on toward him. And Araunah went out and bowed himself before the king on his face upon the ground. And Araunah said, "Wherefore is my lord the king come to his servant?" And David said, "To buy the threshing floor of thee, to build an altar unto the Lord, that the plague may be stayed from the people." People were dying. And David built there an altar unto the Lord and offered burnt offerings, peace offerings. So the Lord was entreated for the land, and the plague was stayed from Israel. Where David built that altar was adjacent to the city called Salem, the city of God. We now call that city Jerusalem. Jerusalem, literally founded peaceful. Israel inhabited this city as their capital until 70 AD. Before 70 AD, there were 2 times when foreign nations came and took Israelites captive from Jerusalem. In 734, it was the Assyrians. In 586, it was the Babylonians. The Assyrians took Jews back to Jerusalem in 721 in order to fill the city. They wanted it to be a functioning city. The Medes and the Persians, having defeated the Babylonians in 539, allowed Jews to return in 458 BC under Cyrus. You can read about it in Ezra chapter 1 and chapter 6. It was later, 70 AD, when the Roman army under the command of Titus conquered Jerusalem, tore down the temple, confiscated her wealth, and dispersed the people. Those Jews were dispersed for the next 1878 years. They only returned after World War II and ultimately took possession of the city of Jerusalem. The region has prospered under Israel's tutelage and care beyond anything anyone could have imagined, beyond anything anyone knows that it has ever been, literally causing the desert to bloom. Today, Amnesty International is planning to target Israel with several, quote, intense campaigns earlier this year, according to a Jerusalem-based watchdog group, citing what it described as leaked documents. It's reporting that in the process, Amnesty will delegitimize Jewish historical connections to Jerusalem and elsewhere, as well as promote discriminatory boycotts against Israel. This according to Jerusalem-based NGO Monitor publication. As part of its effort, Amnesty will go after businesses that it believes are profiting from human rights abuses and operating in the illegal Israeli settlements. This language mirrors that used by UN bureaucrats preparing the UNHRC blacklist. The goal is to economically damage companies that are owned or do business with Israel. They intend to lobby governments to ban Israeli settlement goods from entering these government markets and to stop companies based on their country operating in settlements or trading their goods. This is how Israel is treated in the world. This is how Israel is hated. How many other nations do you know are creating all sorts of havoc, murders, and unspeakable crimes against their own people? Most of the nations of the world. And Israel? Israel has only improved both her own nation and the world by the many inventions and other benefits it has bestowed globally, often freely. Medical help to her enemies. Medical help that isn't available anywhere else in the world, except maybe in the United States. And some things Israel does, nobody does. These are God's people. And therein lies the answer to their grief. The world at large, except for Bible-believing Christians, the world at large hates Israel because Israel is nasty and dirty and they're terrible and they don't care about people and they kill people for no reason and they're destroying the property. And no, because Israel is clearly identified with the one true God of heaven. When Jesus returns, he will return there. He will return to the Mount of Olives, right outside the city walls. And the Bible says that mountain will break in half, and water will flow from the Mediterranean to the Dead Sea. It's all Bible stuff. It's all religious. It has nothing to do with the economy or anything else human. Keep that in mind.